Hey guys, welcome back. So today I am working on the JT and I am switching out the rear axles. I didn't break anything, but I thought it was time and I wanted to take some precautions. As the trails I've been doing lately with some friends are getting harder and harder, I just wanted to put a little bit more reliability into the JT. But anyhow, I'm going to change to these babies right here. And so what these are the Dana Spicer's 4340 Chromoly axles. So your aftermarket axles come in a wide variety, right? You have different levels of chromoly. Pretty much 4340 is probably the cream of the crop as far as what most people change their axles out to. Now RCV has a 300M, which is a step above the 4340. I didn't want to go with that for a couple reasons. One is obviously the price is triple, right? But more importantly is the 300M is so hard that you have the high probability of actually making your ring gear or your pinion the weak link. And that's definitely something you don't want to do on the trail. Right now, going with the 4340 Chromoly axles, I am trying to make my driveline U-joints the weak link. That way it's an easy trail repair. So at least that's the hope, right? But anything can happen out on the trail. Anyhow, I'll show you some dimensions of the axles, how we get these things installed. So let's get after it. So something important I forgot to mention there in the intro was another big reason why I chose to go with the Dana Spicer Chromoly axles is one, if you're not aware, it's what they use in the Ultimate Series axles as far as your Ultimate 60s, etc., Ultimate 44s. It's the same axles they use in those products. Now, the big reason why also is that warranty, right? So my JT has a 100,000 mile warranty. It is the diesel. And I did not want to throw, an RCV back here and have something catastrophic happen and then the drivetrain's not covered. So with the Dana Spicer, it is a Dana Spicer product, much like the axle that's in here already. And it is identical, and I can show you those as soon as I get these pulled out. I can compare. I know they're not going to take my axle and test the materials if something breaks. So that kind of gave me that peace of mind, and so that is why I am going to go with the Dana series stuff until the warranty's up. Then down the road, who knows, I may try something else or just do completely different axle. But again, this whole channel is about making the stock stuff survive. Well, I look at this as stock to some degree. As you can see here, I spared you the details of taking off the brake caliper. It's 2 bolts. They're right there. They're an 18. And then you have 4 retaining bolts that hold the actual axle into the housing. And those bolts are there, and they are also an 18. Really simple, straightforward. So now you're at the point where you got to get the axle out, and I'm going to show you how to make a homemade slide puller. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your disc brake rotor, you're going to slip it on backwards, and you're going to just use a couple lug nuts, and you don't want to tighten them. You just want to kind of get, maybe halfway on the threads. I use 3. And then all you want to do is just give it a little pop. Just like that, and it slides right out. You're going to have a little drippage from the oil in there, so what I do is I pull the axle out. And just stick a rag in there, save my garage floor a little bit. Why that actually took me a couple pulls to get it free is if you look right here, you can see the splines are starting to twist. So this is what they should look like, and that is what is starting to happen on this one. That's the first sign that the axle is getting close, right? Because they twist and they come back, they twist and they come back, and then eventually they break. At some point this thing is going to break. And I am running 40s, and that's expected, right? So hence the upgrade. The other thing too I wanted to point out is they look identical, right? This is the 4340 Chromoly Spicer. This is the stock, right? And what you can see there with the stock one is, you know, it's a little bit worn. The finish on it, it's a little bit more cruder. This one, you can tell it's got a completely different finish. But to the naked eye, very little difference. Also, the axles come fully loaded. So I got mine from Northridge 4x4. I think I paid $210 per axle. And then I used the welcome back coupon. If you just type welcome back in the coupon code, it will, I can't remember, I think it knocked off 10 or 15%. Not a bad price, you know, nice little investment. 200, you know, 400 bucks, set of Chromoly axles. Well worth it. Anyhow, let's get this thing wrapped up. Hey guys, doing this axle swap, I actually wanted to show you the difference between basically the first generation Dana 44, or let's say the Dana 44s that were in the 70s and 80s pickup trucks, and also found in the TJ Rubicon, versus the, I don't want to say new generation 44, because that's the Dana 44s that are found in the JK. However, the Jeep Gladiator uses a different 44 called the Advantech 44, or M210 and M220. So anyhow, let's get to it and I'll show you the difference between the two. So right here you can see the difference. The one on the right is the axle shaft I pulled out of the Gladiator. And right next to it is actually the axle shaft on your left I pulled out of the LJ Rubicon. So you can see quite a bit of difference here. Now both shafts, they kind of neck up, right? So as they get closer to the splines, they kind of step down in size. And that's pretty typical, right? So your strength is right there in the middle of the shaft. Unfortunately, they all seem to break right there at the splines or close to it. At least that's been my experience. So as you can see, the new JT shafts and the Rubicon are 1.58 inches. Now, if you do your homework, you'll notice that the old Dana 60s, they have 1.5-inch shafts in the rear. So the older Dana 44 is 1.28 inches. So I want you to notice the difference between the front axle shafts. So this one here, I pulled out of the LJ. It is a Chromoly shaft, and it uses a Spicer 760 Ujoint. This is the front shaft I pulled out of the Rubicon JT, and you can see the difference between the two. They both are the same thickness through the body. 1.3, 1.3. However, where they differ is at the splines. 1.34 at the splines there, and 1.2 at the splines there. The JT axle shaft actually maintains pretty much the same thickness throughout, where the older style 44 actually necks down quite a bit. So we'll pull the race off this one, and we will stick it in here. I'm going to steal a little bit of this grease. There it goes. Let's make sure it seats all the way back in there. Perfect. All right. Now the fun piece. We're just going to slide the axle right in. When you slide these axles in, what you want to do is you want to kind of put a little downward pressure here so that you can get the splines to line up into the carrier. There we go. Now you're in all the way there. So then we'll just reverse the process. I'll just use these retainer nuts and I'll torque them down to factory specs. And what those factory specs are, I can't remember, so I'll look online. So you want to have a nice torque wrench available. And then we'll just put everything else back together. And that is pretty much it. Now you have a 4340 Chromoly axle from Dana Spicer. It's all factory-ish. And you got a little bit more confidence on the trail. So hopefully we'll be running this thing on the trail today, and I'll get some footage for you guys. So anyways, come down to Sand Hollow, look me up, get out and go wheeling. Cheers.